Alright YouTube, pardon the mess, but it's been a while since I put a video out here. I'm still kind of putzing around with this 2171. Relatively in above my head, but I mean that's where you learn, so works for me. Long story short, main updates that I've got going on here is I started out with that 372 big bore piston in here, and when I got it in there, I had like 63 thou of squish, and I really was hoping for a little bit more compression, a little bit more than that, so I decided to bite the bullet, and I got a 272 piston, which is taller in height above the wrist pin, but it's a shorter skirt. So now I've got some interesting issues going on with this. Effectively, after I got everything mapped out here, I've got my intake duration at 170 degrees, which from everything that I've researched is just way too much duration. You don't want to go past 160. So my plan is to JB weld the intake port on the floor of it to shorten my duration somewhere between 150 and 160. I'm probably just going to split the difference, shoot it about 155, give or take. And then currently, with the setup that I've got in here, my exhaust opening, like the exhaust cracks, at 110 degrees after top dead center. That would change a little bit with the 1184 that I plan on using to hold everything together. So with that, I'm looking at probably closer to, in reality, 109, 108 degrees. For a simple fact that I forgot to mention, when I switched over to that 272 piston, it was 63 thou taller than the 372 piston. And so what that means is that whatever my base gasket is whatever my squish will be, because that the difference in height was exactly the difference, or exactly the squish that I had with the old piston. So I had to get kind of creative, because the base gasket that I got from the shop was 18 thou in its thickest spot, but it had a thinner spot that was 14 thou, and that just, I wasn't gonna work with that, trying to keep it as close to 20 thou as possible. So what I actually ended up doing was, see that piece of cut up can back there, I made a thin layer of tin can for a gasket that comes in right at about 4 thou, so 3 to 4 thou. And so now I've got my base gasket at the moment at about 18 and a half thou, with the glue in there. I'm looking at about 2 thou for a layer, and since I've got 2 gaskets, that's going to mean 3 layers, so between 6 and 9 thou for that. So I'm going to realistically probably be somewhere in 24 on the low end. Hoping for that. I'm hoping to try and get that spread on as thin as I can, so I'm going to try and keep it around 24, 25 thou, see where that gets me. But yeah, for a very first build, I'm kind of doing a ton of research. It's part of the reason it's taken me so long. Plus, I work a bunch of hours summers when I make my money, so there is that. So I just haven't really had a whole lot of time to be tinkering with saws, but I got the day off, so thought I'd tear into it and find out what new fun I've got coming. So next steps, I've still got to prep that new 272 piston, rounding off the corners and beveling the edges and heat treating it like I did with the 372 that I'm no longer using. And then comes the interesting part of filling that intake and grinding on the exhaust. So I'm almost to the actual porting of the saw. So God only knows how long it's going to be till I get my next day off to do a little bit of tinkering, but it should be a blink of an eye if you're coming at this as these are coming out. So thanks you guys for reviews. I'll try and get this going and see what I can do next. If you like the video, like, subscribe, do what you got to do. I'll see you all in the next one.